When Florence Scovel Shinn passed away in 1940, something utterly fascinating was discovered among her personal belongings. 57 small pouches of salt, each one meticulously wrapped in white silk and carefully hidden throughout her home. This wasn't ordinary salt. It was sea salt, specifically collected during a mystical journey to the Dead Sea in 1913, a pilgrimage that would radically alter her understanding of practical spirituality. For nearly 3 decades, Florence discreetly carried this salt in her purse, using it in ways she never publicly revealed, ways that formed the secret foundation of her extraordinary spiritual power. What you are about to uncover about this salt will unveil one of the greatest secrets of spiritual manifestation ever documented. I'm your host, and today we'll unravel one of the most captivating mysteries surrounding the life of Florence Scovel Shinn, the pioneering figure of Christian law of attraction who transformed millions of lives at the dawn of the 20th century. Florence wasn't just a spiritual writer. She was an advanced practitioner, mastering profound esoteric techniques, many of which she kept in absolute secrecy. Among all her hidden practices, none was as potent as her ritual use of the sacred salt she always carried. This wasn't mere superstition or folklore. It was a spiritual science, rooted in ancestral principles Florence uncovered during her deep research into the practices of spiritual masters throughout history. What you learn today could completely revolutionize your own spiritual practice. To grasp the revolutionary significance of salt in Florence Scovel Shinn's life, we must first understand her spiritual journey, the journey that led her to the Dead Sea in 1913. Florence was already recognized as a gifted metaphysician in New York. But she felt she was missing something fundamental, something to reach the deeper levels of spiritual power she observed in history's greatest masters. It was during a profound meditation in January 1913 that Florence received what she described as a clear and unmistakable vision, instructing her to travel to the Dead Sea to receive the salt of eternal purification. At the time, a single woman traveling alone to the Middle East was practically unheard of. But Florence followed her inner guidance with unwavering determination. The journey lasted 3 months, meticulously documented in personal journals only discovered decades after her death. Florence didn't simply go as a tourist. She went as a spiritual pilgrim, following precise instructions she received through meditation and prayer. Her notes reveal that she knew exactly where in the Dead Sea to collect the salt, during which lunar phase, and with what specific rituals. The Dead Sea, Florence discovered, possessed unique energetic properties, making it sacred to multiple spiritual traditions for millennia. The hypersaline waters, 10 times more concentrated than normal oceans, created a powerful field of purification, a field she could feel physically. But what impressed Florence most was discovering that Jesus had been baptized in the Jordan River, exactly where it flows into the Dead Sea, imprinting those waters with a Christ vibration. Florence collected the salt following a precise protocol, a protocol she had received in vision. For 7 consecutive nights of the full moon, she entered the sacred waters at sunrise, prayed for a specific hour, and then collected small amounts of crystallized salt from the shores. Each collection was accompanied by specific declarations of consecration, imbuing the salt with precise spiritual intentions. This salt is consecrated as an instrument of divine purification, she wrote in her journal. May it carry the Christ vibration and the power of transmutation, transforming all negativity into pure light. Florence sensed she was following an ancestral protocol used by spiritual initiates for thousands of years. During her stay at the Dead Sea, Florence experienced profound spiritual transformations. Transformations she directly attributed to continuous exposure to the sacred salts. Her clairvoyance intensified dramatically. Her manifestation abilities multiplied. And most importantly, she developed an energetic sensitivity that allowed her to perceive negative spiritual influences instantly and neutralize them with surgical precision. When she returned to New York in April 1913, Florence brought with her approximately 2 kilograms of carefully packaged sacred salt. But she didn't use this salt indiscriminately. Through meditation and careful experimentation, Florence developed specific protocols for different spiritual applications, each with distinct purposes and precise methods of use. The first use Florence discovered was what she called environmental purification. Whenever she entered a home, office, or any space where she sensed heavy or negative energies, Florence discreetly sprinkled microscopic pinches of the sacred salt in the corners of the rooms. She discovered that the salt not only absorbed negative energies, but transmuted them into neutral energy, creating a lasting field of protection. Florence documented hundreds of cases where this practice yielded impressive results. Homes with constant conflict became peaceful after the application of the salt. Offices where business stagnated began to thrive. Even hospitals and clinics where Florence offered spiritual consultations showed improvements in patient healing rates after she discreetly applied the sacred salt. But the most powerful use Florence developed was what she called salt of directed manifestation. For each specific desire she wanted to manifest, Florence consecrated a small amount of the salt with specific prayers and visualizations, creating what she described as crystallized seeds of divine intention. The process was meticulous. Florence would separate a pinch of sacred salt into a small silver bowl and pray over it for exactly 21 minutes, intensely visualizing the desired outcome already manifested. During this process, she felt the salt literally heat up in her hands, a sign that it was being infused with the energy of intention. Once consecrated, Florence carried this specific salt in small silk pouches, always in contact with her skin. She discovered that body heat and proximity to the heart continuously amplified the salt's vibration, creating a magnetic field that attracted opportunities related to the programmed intention. One of the most documented cases was when Florence manifested the opportunity to publish her first book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. For 3 months, she carried consecrated salt, specifically programmed to attract her ideal publisher. This wasn't just any salt. It was meticulously imbued with detailed visualizations, visions of her book being published, widely distributed, transforming lives across the globe. Exactly 92 days after beginning this ritual, Florence received an unexpected call. A publisher had quite unexpectedly stumbled upon one of her manuscripts and expressed immediate interest in publication. The book became a bestseller and remains influential over a century later. A testament to the power of focused intention, Florence also developed the use of salt for personal spiritual protection. She discovered that individuals deeply involved in intense spiritual work become naturally more susceptible to psychic attacks, targeted envy, and other forms of negative energetic interference. The sacred salt, when carried continuously, created an invisible protective shield, automatically deflecting these influences. The salt absorbs and transmutes all energy directed against me, Florence wrote in her private notes. It's like carrying an invisible spiritual bodyguard, working 24 hours a day. She reported that after using the salt for protection, periods of inexplicable fatigue, sudden depression, or creative blocks, sometimes experienced after intense spiritual consultations, completely ceased. One of the most innovative applications Florence developed was using salt to amplify prayers and decrees. She discovered that holding a pinch of the sacred salt in her left hand while praying or making spiritual affirmations exponentially multiplied the power of her spoken words. The salt acted as an energetic amplifier, potentiating the vibration of the words and sending them directly into the quantum field of manifestation. Florence extensively tested this method, comparing the results of prayers made with and without the salt. The results were consistently astonishing. Prayers made while holding the sacred salt manifested, on average, 3 times faster than conventional prayers, and often in more abundant ways than originally requested. But perhaps Florence's most revolutionary discovery was what she called the salt of instant transmutation. In situations of extreme negativity, violent arguments, hateful environments, moments of profound despair, Florence discreetly placed a pinch of the salt under her tongue and slowly dissolved it while silently praying. The effect, according to her accounts, was almost magical. The negative energy of the environment rapidly transmuted into neutrality, and often into genuine positivity. Furious people inexplicably calmed down. Tense situations resolved harmoniously. Seemingly impossible crises found creative solutions, beneficial to everyone involved. Florence documented over 300 specific cases over 27 years of using the transmutation salt. In no case were there negative or contrary effects. The salt seemed to possess its own intelligence, always working for the highest good of everyone involved in each situation. One particularly touching story involves a couple on the brink of divorce. They sought Florence for one last attempt at reconciliation. During the counseling session, the tension between them was so intense that Florence could physically feel the hatred in the air. Discreetly, she placed a pinch of the salt under her tongue and began silently praying for the healing of their relationship. Within 15 minutes, the atmosphere of the room had completely changed. The couple began speaking with honesty and compassion for the first time in years. By the end of the 2-hour session, they were holding hands and planning a second honeymoon. Florence attributed this transformation directly to the transmutative power of the sacred salt. Florence also discovered that the salt functioned as an accurate spiritual oracle. When faced with important decisions, she would meditate, holding a handful of the sacred salt and formulating specific questions. The answer came through distinct physical sensations. Warmth indicated yes, cold indicated no, and vibration indicated await more information. This method of guidance proved incredibly accurate over the years. Florence made crucial decisions about career, relationships, investments, and even changes of residence based on the guidance received through the salt. In her notes, she credited the sacred salt with the success of virtually all her important decisions after 1913. But Florence kept absolute secrecy, not only about her methods, but also the source of her salt. She feared that if the knowledge became public, individuals without adequate spiritual preparation might misuse the salt, using it with selfish intentions, diminishing its efficacy or even creating negative effects. Only 5 of Florence's closest disciples received small quantities of the sacred salt while she was alive. always accompanied by specific instructions and oaths of discretion. These disciples reported extraordinary transformations in their own lives, confirming the unique power of the salt collected from the Dead Sea. The secret of the sacred salt that Florence Scovel Shinn carried in her purse for almost 3 decades represents one of the most powerful discoveries in practical spirituality ever documented. This wasn't just a historical curiosity or a folk practice. It was an advanced spiritual technology that Florence used daily to manifest, protect, purify, and transform the reality around her. For over 100 years, this knowledge remained hidden, known only to a handful of privileged initiates. But now, for the first time, these secrets are being revealed to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear authentic spiritual wisdom. If this revelation has deeply touched your heart, and you recognize the invaluable worth of this ancestral knowledge, I invite you to support our work of preserving and sharing true spiritual wisdom through Super Thanks. Your contribution is not just an expression of gratitude. It's an investment in your own spiritual evolution, a recognition that some knowledge transcends any material value. With a small contribution, you express your appreciation for access to secrets Florence kept hidden for decades. With a larger contribution, you energetically align yourself with the abundance and protection this knowledge can bring to your life. A significant contribution demonstrates your understanding of the true value of this practical spiritual wisdom, and a generous contribution positions you as a true seeker of truth, willing to invest in knowledge that can radically transform your capacity for manifestation and spiritual protection. Remember the words Florence penned in her intimate diary. When we cherish spiritual wisdom, it multiplies in our lives in unimaginable ways. The universe always honors those who honor its divine mysteries. Click on Super Thanks now and allow your conscious generosity to open the channels for more powerful spiritual revelations to reach you. May the sacred secrets of Florence Scovel Shinn inspire you to embark on your own journey of profound spiritual discovery, always remembering that the greatest treasures of spirituality are reserved for those who seek them with a sincere heart and an open mind. Until our next transformative revelation.